That afternoon, Arthur checked his bank account. Empty. His son called an hour later. "Dad, my wedding is tomorrow. I took everything. Sold the house, too. Good luck." Then he hung up. Arthur sat at the kitchen table. The same table where his late wife Martha used to set her coffee mug every morning. She had been gone 4 years. He still hadn't moved that mug. The movers were already upstairs. He could hear their boots on the hardwood floor. The same floor he and Martha had walked on for 45 years. He pulled out his phone. He made one call. And by the time the wedding began the next day, his son learned a lesson no courtroom could ever teach. "But I am getting ahead of myself. My name is Eleanor Brooks. I am 67 years old. Retired. Widowed. Living in a quiet little town outside Indianapolis. This is the story of Arthur. A man who spent 32 years as a firefighter. He had pulled people from burning buildings. He had carried children out of smoke-filled rooms. He had saved lives. He never expected to lose everything to his own son. Let me take you back to where it began. Mother's Day. Scottsdale, Arizona. The kind of warm evening where the heat clings to your skin long after the sun goes down. Arthur and Martha pulled into the parking lot of a luxury restaurant. His old Honda Civic made a grinding noise as he shifted into park. He had been ignoring it for months. They could not afford to fix it. Martha sat in the passenger seat wearing her pale blue dress. The one from the thrift store. 15 years old. She had ironed it that morning, her hands trembling the whole time. She looked at the restaurant through the windshield. "Are you sure about this?" she asked quietly. "It's Mother's Day," Arthur said, squeezing her hand. "You deserve a nice dinner." She did not argue. That was Martha. 69 years old. 47 years married. And she never complained. Not when Arthur worked double shifts at the fire station. Not when her diabetes ate through their savings. Not when he told her they could not afford her medicine anymore. Arthur helped her out of the car. She moved slowly, favoring her left foot. The ulcer had been there for months. He could see the dark stain seeping through her stocking. Neither of them said anything. The restaurant was not open yet, but Arthur had called ahead. The manager, a man named Miguel, met them at the entrance. Kind eyes. Early 50s. "Mr. Bennett." Arthur shook his hand and pulled out an envelope from his jacket. Inside was $600 in cash. Every dollar they had left. Their rent money for May. They were already 2 months behind. "I need you to do something," Arthur said quietly. "My son and his daughter-in-law are taking us to dinner tonight. When the check comes, I need you to tell them it has already been paid." Miguel looked at the bills. Then at Martha standing nearby. Then at the old Honda with its scratched paint. "Why?" he asked. "Because I know my son won't pay for his mother," Arthur said. "And I will not let her be humiliated tonight." Miguel tucked the envelope into his pocket. "I will take care of it. Whatever the total is, if it is more than 600, it is on the house." Arthur's throat tightened. "Thank you." "Happy Mother's Day, ma'am," Miguel said to Martha. They drove around the block until 6 o'clock. When they returned, a young valet eyed their Honda with barely concealed disdain. Arthur handed him the keys and helped Martha out. She leaned on him heavily. Then he heard it. The growl of an expensive engine. A black Porsche pulled up behind them, gleaming in the evening light. His son stepped out. Michael. 46 years old. Wearing a suit that probably cost more than their monthly rent. He looked successful. Healthy. Everything Arthur had wanted for him. Then she emerged from the passenger side. Vanessa. 43. Blonde. Beautiful in that expensive way. Designer dress. Perfect hair. Heels like weapons. She looked at them standing there. Arthur in his old sport coat. Martha in her thrift store dress. And she smiled. Not warmly. The kind of smile that said they did not belong here. Mom, Dad. Michael hugged Martha carefully, then clapped Arthur's shoulder. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Martha's face brightened. Thank you, sweetheart. Vanessa followed. Heels clicking. She barely touched Martha's cheek with her lips. Hi, Catherine. That's a lovely dress. Vintage, right? Martha's smile faltered. Oh, yes. I have had it a while. I thought so, Vanessa said, turning to Arthur. Arthur. Good to see you. Inside, the restaurant hummed with quiet wealth. Crystal chandeliers. White tablecloths. Couples in cocktail attire. Their table was tucked in the corner. Martha slid into her seat with relief, her hand going to her foot. Arthur saw her wince. You okay, Mom? Michael asked. Just a little tired, Martha said quickly. Vanessa was already on her phone. Michael glanced at his wife, then his mother, then shrugged and opened his menu. Arthur opened his too. Though he knew he would order something small. A salad, maybe. Martha would do the same. They always did. But Vanessa flipped through the pages with confidence. Oh my God, they have oysters, she said. Babe, we have to get the oysters. Sure, Michael said, not looking up. And the lobster tail. It is market price, but whatever. Special occasion. Under the table, Martha's hand found Arthur's. Her fingers were cold and trembling. He squeezed back. The waiter appeared. Young. Polite. White shirt. Crisp. Good evening. Can I start you with drinks? Bottle of the Camus, Vanessa said immediately. The 2019. The waiter nodded and left. Michael leaned back, scrolling his phone. Neither of them had looked at Martha in 5 minutes. Arthur sat there holding his wife's hand. Watching Vanessa study the menu like she was planning a campaign. The waiter returned with water. I will start with the oysters Rockefeller, Vanessa announced. And the lobster tail for my main. Excellent choice, the waiter said. Tuna tartare and the Wagyu ribeye, Michael added, eyes still on his phone. The waiter turned to Martha. And for you, ma'am? Martha's eyes scanned the prices. Arthur watched her face tighten. $38 for a salad. $55 for pasta. The French onion soup, please, she said softly. $18. The cheapest item on the menu. And you, sir? House salad, Arthur said. $16. Vanessa did not even glance up as the waiter collected their menus. Neither she nor Michael seemed to notice that their combined order cost more than Arthur and Martha spent on groceries in a month. The wine arrived. Vanessa swirled. Sipped. Nodded approval. One bottle cost more than their electric bill. Arthur looked at his son across the table. At his expensive watch. His tailored suit. His $1,000 phone. He thought about the day 16 years ago when he had signed over his entire inheritance. $2 million from his parents' estate. Every cent. Because he had wanted Michael to have opportunities he never had. Martha sat very still. Hands folded. Eyes on the flickering candle. The light caught the silver in her hair. The lines around her mouth. The way her shoulders curved inward. 47 years he had known this woman. 47 years of struggles they had faced together. And now they sat in a restaurant they could not afford. Their rent money already paid to Miguel. Watching their son ignore his mother while his wife ordered lobster. The appetizers arrived. Vanessa attacked her oysters without a word to anyone. Michael cut into his tuna, still on his phone. Martha's soup sat untouched in front of her. Her hand trembled in Arthur's. He should have known something was wrong the moment he saw her smile. But now he was certain. The night was just beginning. Martha watched Vanessa eat. That was the first thing Arthur noticed. The way his wife sat perfectly still, her soup cooling in front of her, while Vanessa lifted an oyster to her lips and tipped it back with practiced ease. 6 of them on that plate. $86 worth of shellfish disappearing in minutes. Michael did not look up from his phone. The tuna tartare sat half-finished in front of him. A tower of raw fish and avocado that cost more than Martha's weekly medicine. Arthur's iced tea was $4.50. He had not touched it yet. Then Vanessa set down her fork and reached for her purse. Her whole demeanor changed. The phone scrolling vanished, replaced by something theatrical. She turned to Martha with a smile Arthur did not trust. "Catherine," she said, her voice suddenly warm in a way that made his skin crawl. "Michael and I have some news." Martha looked up. Hopeful. "Oh." Vanessa glanced at Michael, who finally set down his phone and nodded. Then she turned the screen toward them. "We are pregnant," Vanessa announced. 14 weeks. On the screen was an image. Black and white. Grainy. The kind you see in doctors' offices. A tiny curved shape in a sea of gray. The date stamp read 6 weeks ago. Martha's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God. Oh, sweetheart." Tears sprang to her eyes. Real tears. The kind that come from somewhere deep. She reached across the table with trembling hands and grasped Vanessa's wrist. "A baby." She turned to Michael. "You are going to be a father." "Yeah, Mom," Michael said, a slight smile on his face. "We wanted to tell you in person on Mother's Day." "That is wonderful," Martha whispered, her voice breaking. "That is just wonderful." She was crying openly now. Her shoulders shaking. She squeezed Vanessa's hand like she was holding on to a lifeline. A grand baby. She had never thought she would live to see one. Vanessa patted Martha's hand once, twice, then gently pulled away and picked up her wine glass. "We are very excited," she said, taking a sip. "When are you due?" Martha asked, wiping her eyes with her napkin. "Late October," Vanessa said. "Halloween, actually." "Is not that funny?" "Have you thought about names?" "Not yet. It is still early." "Do you know if it is a boy or a girl?" "Too soon to tell." Arthur sat there watching the whole exchange. Saying nothing. Something about it felt wrong. Not obvious. Nothing he could point to and say there. But wrong nonetheless. The way Vanessa held her wine glass, for one thing. 14 weeks pregnant and she was drinking like it was water. Maybe that was normal now. Maybe he was just old-fashioned. But Martha had not touched alcohol when she was carrying Michael. Not a drop. And the image on the phone. He had seen ultrasounds before. Friends' grandkids. The guys at the station showing off pictures. They all looked similar. But something about this one felt too perfect. Too textbook. Like a picture from a medical website. But he kept his mouth shut. What was he going to do? Accuse his daughter-in-law of faking a pregnancy at the dinner table? Call his son a liar on Mother's Day? So he sat there and watched Martha cry tears of joy while Vanessa finished her wine and Michael went back to his phone. "You are going to be a grandfather, Arthur," Martha said, turning to him with a radiant smile. "Can you believe it?" "That is great news," Arthur said, forcing the words out. Martha squeezed his hand. "Our first grandchild. Our first. Our only. Probably." At 69 with failing kidneys and an ulcer that would not heal, Martha was not likely to see many more milestones. But she did not say that. She just smiled through her tears and asked Vanessa more questions about doctors and due dates and nursery colors. And Arthur thought. Where did it all go? The money. The $2 million. It hit him like a freight train. The memory of that kitchen table 16 years ago. The papers spread out in front of them. The notary stamp still wet on the transfer documents. March 2008. It had been 3 weeks since they had lost his parents. A semi-truck ran a red light on the highway. Just like that, 2 people who had been alive for 70-some years were gone. The inheritance came through quickly. Their house sold. Their savings liquidated. Life insurance paid out. When the lawyer handed Arthur the final number, he had stared at it for a full minute without speaking. $2 million. Martha and Arthur sat at their kitchen table that night. The same table with the wobbly leg he had never fixed. Michael was there too. 30 years old. Fresh out of business school. Full of ideas and ambition. What are we going to do with it? Martha had asked quietly. Arthur looked at the papers. At the numbers. At his son sitting across from him. We are going to give it to Michael, he said. Martha's eyes widened. All of it? All of it. Michael looked up. Dad, you do not have to. Yes, I do. Arthur slid the papers across the table. Your grandparents worked their whole lives to leave something behind. They would want you to have opportunities we never had. But what about you? Michael asked. What about Mom? You could retire. You could. We are fine, Arthur said. We have got my pension. We have got the house. We do not need fancy things. But you. You could start a business. Invest. Build something. Martha reached over and squeezed Arthur's hand. Your father is right, she said softly. This is your chance. The notary came to their house the next day. Arthur signed the papers. Transferred every cent Michael had promised. Arthur remembered his exact words. I will make you proud, Dad. I will build something great with this. I promise. Arthur believed him. And now, 16 years later, he sat in a restaurant he could not afford. Watching his son scroll through his phone while his wife drank wine and announced a pregnancy Arthur did not quite believe. Where had the money gone? $2 million invested. That should have been $4 million by now. 5 even. But here they were. Michael in his expensive suit. Vanessa in her designer dress. And Martha with $18 soup she could not bring herself to eat. The waiter appeared to clear the appetizer plates. Vanessa's was empty. So was Michael's. Arthur's iced tea was barely touched. Martha's soup was still full. The cheese on top congealed into a cold rubbery skin. Did you not like the soup, ma'am? The waiter asked politely. Oh, I am just full, Martha lied. Her smile did not quite reach her eyes. It was lovely. The waiter nodded and cleared it away. Vanessa was already looking at the main courses section of the menu. Her finger tracing down the list of steaks and seafood. So, what is everyone thinking for entrees? She asked brightly. Martha's hands were trembling again. She folded them in her lap, trying to hide it. Arthur reached over and covered them with his. Across the table, Michael was typing something on his phone. He had not looked at his mother since the pregnancy announcement. Had not asked how she was feeling. Had not noticed the untouched soup or the way her face had gone pale. Vanessa tapped the menu. I am thinking the lobster tail. Of course she was. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Arthur heard his father's voice from years ago. If you give someone everything, make sure they know what it cost. Arthur had given Michael everything. And sitting there, watching Martha's hands shake while Vanessa ordered more food they had not paid for yet. Food Arthur had already paid for with their rent money. He wondered if his son had ever understood the cost at all. Martha's trembling hands reminded him of another morning. 8 weeks ago. March 10th. The day he had driven her to the hospital with her glucose at 450 and climbing. He had woken up at 6 that morning to find her sitting on the edge of the bed, swaying slightly. Her nightgown was soaked with sweat. When he touched her arm, her skin was clammy and cold. "Martha?" She did not answer right away. Just stared at the wall, breathing too fast. Arthur grabbed the glucose monitor from her nightstand. The one they had bought second-hand because new ones cost too much. His hand shook as he pricked her finger. The number that came up made his stomach drop. 450. Normal was under 120. Anything over 200 was dangerous. 450 meant her body was eating itself from the inside out. "We are going to the hospital," Arthur said, already pulling clothes from the dresser. "Arthur, we cannot afford." "Now, Martha." "We are going now." He helped her dress. Half carried her to the car. She threw up twice on the drive. Arthur held a plastic bag for her while trying to keep the Honda steady on the highway, praying they would make it in time. The thing was, it was not sudden. The numbers did not just spike overnight. She had been rationing her insulin for months. Since the previous summer when their insurance lapsed and they could not afford the out-of-pocket cost anymore. $750 a month for the medication that kept her alive. They had tried. God knew they had tried. But between the mortgage and the utilities and the property taxes, there just was not enough. So Martha had started cutting her doses. A little less each time. Skipping the nighttime injection. Telling herself it would be fine. Telling Arthur it would be fine. It was not fine. And Arthur had let it happen. Because 1 week before March 3rd, exactly 7 days before that terrible morning, he had sat in a doctor's office and heard words that changed everything. Stage 2 prostate cancer. Treatment recommended immediately. Estimated cost. $78,500. Arthur had walked out of that office with the paperwork folded in his jacket pocket. He never told Martha. How could he? She was already rationing insulin to stay alive. How was he supposed to tell her he needed $78,000 for treatment that might not even work? So he hid the diagnosis. Buried the papers in his truck's glove box. And 7 days later, he carried his wife into an emergency room with ketoacidosis ravaging her system. The ICU nurse got Martha stabilized within a few hours. The doctor explained it all in careful terms. Diabetic ketoacidosis. Potassium imbalance. Severe dehydration. They started in 4 drip. Adjusted her levels. Monitored her heart. She will be okay, the doctor told Arthur in the hallway. But this cannot happen again. The insulin. She needs it. Full doses every day. I know, Arthur said. If she keeps rationing, next time we might not be able to bring her back. Arthur nodded. Unable to speak. The bill came 2 days later. $12,847. Arthur sat in the hospital cafeteria at 2 in the morning, staring at that number. Trying to figure out how they would ever pay it. His pension was $32,000 a year. They were already behind on everything. That was when he called Michael. 13 times. 13 calls over the course of 3 hours. He did not answer once. Arthur found out later where Michael had been that day. An $850 couples massage at a luxury spa. Him and Vanessa relaxing while his mother lay in an ICU bed 30 miles away. But what Arthur would never forget, what burned itself into his memory like a brand, happened on the 2nd day of Martha's hospital stay. He had stepped out of her room to use the restroom. She was sleeping finally. The machines beeping softly beside her bed. The hallway was quiet. Just him and the fluorescent lights and the smell of disinfectant. That was when he heard voices around the corner. Michael's voice. Low. But not quite low enough. I am just saying it is $50,000. The policy has been paid up for years. And then Vanessa's voice. Sharper. Colder. How much longer do you think she has? Arthur froze. Pressed himself against the wall. Barely breathing. I do not know, Michael said. A year. Maybe less. The doctor said her kidneys are. So we wait, Vanessa interrupted. We wait and then we deal with the house, the policy, all of it. It is not ideal. But it is not like we have a choice. Your father has got nothing. Yeah. Just that. Yeah. Not an argument. Not a defense of his mother. Just agreement. Arthur stood there in that hallway, listening to his son and his daughter-in-law discuss his wife's life insurance policy like it was a stock they were waiting to mature. And something inside him broke. Not shattered. Broken cleanly. The way a bone breaks when too much weight has been put on it for too long. He waited until they left. Walked back into Martha's room. Sat beside her bed. Held her hand while she slept. And 2 days later, Arthur signed up to drive for a ride-share service. Night shift. 6 in the evening until 2 in the morning. 71 years old with an undiagnosed cancer eating away at him. Driving strangers around Scottsdale for $20 an hour. It was all he could think to do. Now, sitting in the restaurant with the memory of that hallway conversation echoing in his head, Arthur looked across the table at his son. Michael was scrolling through his phone again. Not even pretending to pay attention to his mother anymore. Martha was asking Vanessa something about baby names. Her voice was soft. Hopeful. Trembling with the same joy Arthur had heard when Michael was born 46 years ago. Vanessa answered without looking up from her wine glass. And Arthur thought about $50,000. About an $850 massage. About 13 unanswered calls. He thought about the $600 currently sitting in Miguel's pocket. Their rent money gone. Because he knew what was coming. And he would be damned if he let them humiliate her. His hands were steady on the table. He kept them that way deliberately. Forced himself to breathe evenly. To stay calm. But inside, he was burning. 8 weeks ago, he had heard his son agree that they should just wait for his mother to pass. Wait for the insurance money. Wait like vultures. Tonight, he was going to show him exactly what that waiting had cost. But that was not the only time Arthur had seen that look in Vanessa's eyes. The one that said Martha did not matter. 2 weeks before tonight. April 28th. A Sunday afternoon. Arthur had been sitting in their living room that morning. Drinking coffee. Trying not to think about the eviction notice tucked in the kitchen drawer. When his phone buzzed. A message from his neighbor Helen. Did you see what your daughter-in-law posted? Arthur did not have social media. Never saw the point. But Helen had sent him a screenshot. There was Vanessa. Smiling at the camera. Her wrist extended to show off a diamond bracelet that caught the light like a small constellation. The caption read, "Treated myself. Tiffany and Company. Because I deserve it." Below the image, hundreds of thousands of people had seen it. Liked it. Commented things like, "Stunning," and, "You go, girl." Helen's next message, Tiffany website says that bracelet is $8,500. Arthur stared at that number for a long time. $8,500. More than half of what they owed in medical bills. More than 6 months of Martha's insulin. Enough to keep them from being evicted. And Vanessa had bought it for herself. Because she deserved it. Arthur showed Martha the screenshot. She looked at it quietly. Then handed his phone back without a word. "It is her money," she said softly. "She can spend it how she wants." That afternoon, Michael and Vanessa showed up at their house unannounced. Michael had a Mother's Day card in his hand. One of those expensive ones from the fancy stationery store. Thick paper with embossed flowers on the front. "We wanted to give this to you early, Mom," he said, handing it to Martha. "Since we will see you on the actual day anyway." Martha smiled. Touched. "You did not have to do that." "Of course we did," Vanessa said, adjusting the bracelet on her wrist. The same one from the photo. It glinted in the afternoon light streaming through their living room window. Martha opened the envelope carefully. The way she always did. Trying not to tear the paper. She pulled out the card. Beautiful. Probably $7 or $8 just for the card itself. And opened it. Inside was nothing. Not a signature. Not a message. Not even a scribbled, "Love, Michael and Vanessa." Just blank white space. Martha stared at it for a long moment. Her smile frozen on her face. Arthur watched the light go out of her eyes. "Oh," she said quietly. Vanessa laughed. A light, careless sound. "We thought at your age, simple is best. Less clutter. We figured you would appreciate the sentiment more than a bunch of words you would just forget anyway." Martha's hand started to tremble. She closed the card. Carefully set it on the coffee table. "That is very thoughtful," she managed. "Glad you like it," Vanessa said, already checking her phone. Michael glanced at his mother. Then at his wife. Then back at the television playing silently in the corner. He said nothing. Martha stood up slowly. "Excuse me. I need to use the restroom." She walked out of the room with her shoulders very straight. Her head up. But Arthur heard it. The way her breath caught. The way her footsteps quickened as she reached the hallway. And then, through the closed bathroom door, he heard her cry. Not loud. Not theatrical. Just small, broken sounds that she was trying to muffle with a towel or her hands or whatever she could find. Arthur sat there on the couch. The blank card on the table between him and his son. Listening to his wife's heartbreak in the next room. "So, Dad," Michael said, scrolling through his phone. "How is the car running?" And now, 2 weeks later, Arthur sat across from that same son in a restaurant that cost more than their monthly grocery budget. Watching him ignore his mother all over again. The waiter returned with their entrees. He set them down one by one with practiced precision. Vanessa's lobster tail. A massive thing, butterflied and glistening with butter. Served with asparagus and roasted potatoes. $95. Michael's steak. Wagyu ribeye. Seared perfectly. The kind of meat that practically melted. $185. Martha's soup. The French onion she had ordered at the start. Now cold. The cheese congealed on top. $18. She had not touched it. Arthur's salad. House greens. Simple dressing. $16. "Enjoy your meals," the waiter said and disappeared. Vanessa cut into her lobster. Not bothering to wait for anyone else. Michael sawed into his steak. The knife making a soft sound against the plate. Arthur looked at Martha. She was staring at her soup. Her hands folded in her lap. He could see them trembling even from across the table. And then he saw it. The dark stain spreading across her left stocking just above the ankle. The ulcer. It had started bleeding again. Seeping through the bandage she had wrapped that morning. Soaking into the fabric. She noticed him looking and shifted in her seat. Trying to tuck her foot under her chair where no one could see. "You okay, Mom?" Michael asked, glancing up briefly from his phone. "Oh, yes. Fine," Martha said quickly. He nodded and went back to his screen. Vanessa was describing something. Her voice bright and animated. Talking about a trip they were planning. "Greece," she said. "Santorini specifically. The white buildings and blue water and some resort that cost $4,000 a night. We are thinking September," she said, dipping lobster into butter. "Before it gets too cold. Michael has never been. And I just think it will be so romantic, you know? Plus, we will need a vacation before the baby comes." She touched her stomach. Flat. No sign of the pregnancy she had claimed. 14 weeks, she had said. But there was nothing there. Martha tried to smile. That sounds lovely. Have you ever been to Greece, Catherine? Vanessa asked. Not really looking at her. More interested in the lobster. No. We never traveled much. Oh, that is too bad. Vanessa did not sound like she thought it was bad. She sounded like she had expected that answer. Well, I will send you pictures. That would be nice, Martha said. Her voice was so small. So tired. Arthur reached under the table and found her hand again. It was ice cold. Shaking badly now. He squeezed gently. She squeezed back. Barely. Vanessa kept talking about Mykonos and Athens and some restaurant she had read about that had Michelin stars. About the infinity pool at the resort and the private beach and the spa treatments included with the room. $4,000 a night for a hotel room. They were 2 months behind on rent. $12,000 behind on medical bills. Arthur's wife was bleeding through her stocking at a dinner table. And his son's wife was describing a vacation that cost more than they had made all year. Michael said nothing. Just ate his $185 steak and scrolled through his phone. Martha's soup remained untouched. The cheese now completely solid. Arthur ate his salad slowly. Mechanically. Each bite tasting like dust. And Vanessa talked on and on and on. Her voice filling the space where conversation should have been. Where questions about Martha's health or compliments about her dress or even just basic acknowledgement of her existence might have gone. But there was none of that. Just Greece. Just infinity pools and Michelin stars and $4,000 rooms. Arthur looked at his son. At the expensive watch on his wrist. $20,000, easy. At the tailored suit. At the phone that was probably his 3rd or 4th upgrade this year. And he thought about the blank cards sitting on their coffee table at home. The one with no words inside. The one that had made his wife cry in their bathroom while her son sat in the living room and asked about his car. Simple is best, Vanessa had said. At your age. Like Martha was already gone. Already forgotten. Already just an obstacle between them and $50,000. Arthur set down his fork and looked across the table. Michael felt his gaze and glanced up from his phone. What? Nothing, Arthur said quietly. But it was not nothing. And Michael was about to find out exactly what it was. Arthur's attention drifted. Old habit from the fire station. Always scanning the room. Always looking for exits. For hazards. For the things other people missed. That was when he noticed the woman at table 12. She sat alone. Mid to late 40s. Dark hair pulled back. She wore scrubs. The kind nurses or medical staff wear. Like she had come straight from a shift. Her meals sat mostly untouched in front of her. But that was not what caught his attention. It was her phone. She held it casually propped against her water glass at an angle. To anyone else, it would look like she was scrolling through messages or checking the time. But Arthur had spent 32 years reading situations. He knew what he was seeing. She was recording. The lens was pointed directly at their table. Not obviously. She was good at it. Subtle. But he could see the red dot reflected in the screen's black border. She had been capturing everything. How long, he was not sure. But long enough. Arthur should have felt something. Alarm, maybe. Or anger. But he felt nothing except a strange sense of inevitability. Like somewhere deep down, he had known this moment was coming. That whatever was about to happen needed witnesses. He looked away before she noticed him watching. That was when Miguel appeared at their table. How is everything this evening? He asked. His voice warm and professional. He addressed the question to all of them. But his eyes stayed on Arthur. Excellent, Vanessa said, not looking up from her lobster. The food here is amazing. I am glad to hear it, Miguel nodded, then turned to Martha. And you, ma'am? Is the soup to your liking? Martha forced a smile. It is very good. Thank you. Miguel's gaze shifted to Arthur. He saw something flicker in the manager's expression. Recognition, maybe. Or curiosity. His eyes dropped to Arthur's hands resting on the table beside his barely touched salad. He stared at Arthur's right hand for a beat too long. Arthur knew what he was seeing. The scar. A silvered line of puckered skin that ran from his knuckles up to his wrist. An old burn. 30 years healed. But still visible. He had gotten it in 1994. Pulling a man out of a warehouse fire. The beam had fallen. Pinned him. Arthur grabbed it with his bare hand to shift it. The heat seared through his glove like it was paper. The man had lived. Arthur's hand had healed. The scar stayed. Most people did not notice it. Or if they did not ask. But Miguel noticed. He looked at the scar. Then at Arthur. Then back at the scar. Something passed across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. If you need anything, Miguel said quietly, his eyes meeting Arthur's. Anything at all, please let me know. There was weight in those words. More than just a manager checking on customers. Thank you, Arthur said. Miguel nodded once. Lingered for another second. Then moved on to the next table. Arthur watched him go. Wondering what he had seen in that scar. What he remembered. But before he could think too much about it, Michael's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen, and his face tightened. I need to take this, he muttered, pushing back his chair. Who is it? Vanessa asked, finally looking up from her plate. Derek. Work stuff. On Mother's Day? It is important. Michael was already standing. Phone pressed to his ear. Yeah, I am here. Hang on. He walked away from the table. Weaving through the restaurant toward the entrance. Arthur watched him go. Saw the tension in his shoulders. The way his free hand clenched into a fist at his side. Derek. His business partner. The guy he had started the real estate company with back in 2009. Right after Arthur had given him the money. Arthur had met Derek once. Too many teeth when he smiled. The kind of guy who called everyone buddy and made you feel like you needed to count your fingers after shaking his hand. Something was wrong. Arthur could tell by the way Michael had moved. The urgency in his voice. But Vanessa did not seem concerned. She just shrugged and went back to her lobster. Pouring herself another glass of wine from the bottle that had cost more than their electric bill. The Camus. $142. She had already finished half of it. Pregnant, she had said. 14 weeks. Arthur looked at the wine glass in her hand and said nothing. Across from him, Martha lifted her spoon and tried the soup again. She managed one spoonful. Then another. But Arthur could see the effort it took. The way she had to force herself to swallow. The way her throat worked against the texture. The ulcer on her foot was still bleeding. He could see the stain spreading slowly across her stocking. And her stomach. God, her stomach had to be a mess too. The rationed insulin. The irregular meals. Months of her body trying to survive on half of what it needed. She set the spoon down after the third bite and folded her hands in her lap. Not hungry? Arthur asked quietly. Just full, she lied. Arthur reached over and squeezed her hand. It was trembling again. He looked around the restaurant. At the other tables. At the families celebrating. There was a couple 2 tables over, maybe their age, holding hands across the tablecloth. The woman was laughing at something her husband said. Her face bright with joy. 3 tables to the left, a family with kids. Teenagers, probably. Passing around a phone. Looking at photos. All of them smiling. Mother's Day. A celebration. Everywhere Arthur looked, people were together. Happy. Present. And then there was them. Martha with her untouched soup and bleeding foot, trying to smile through the pain. Vanessa with her lobster and her wine and her phone, utterly oblivious. Michael somewhere near the entrance, pacing while he talked about business problems he would not explain. And Arthur. Sitting at a table he had paid for with rent money. Watching his wife suffer. Knowing he could not fix it. Could not make it better. Could not do anything except sit here and hold her hand and wait for the moment when everything would finally come to a head. He had never felt more alone in his life. Not when he had carried bodies out of burning buildings. Not when he had sat in a hospital waiting room while Martha fought for her life. Not even when he had heard his son talk about waiting for his mother to pass so he could collect insurance money. This was worse. Because he was surrounded by people who were supposed to love them. And none of them saw them at all. The woman at table 12 was still recording. Arthur could see her in his peripheral vision. Phone angle just right. Capturing everything. Good, he thought distantly. Let her record it. Let someone see what this looks like. Michael returned to the table 10 minutes later. His face was tight. Pale under the restaurant's golden lighting. He sat down without a word. Picked up his knife and fork. Went back to cutting his steak. Everything okay? Martha asked softly. Fine, Michael said, not looking at her. Are you sure? You look. I said it is fine, Mom. His tone was sharp. Dismissive. Martha flinched slightly and went quiet. Vanessa glanced at Michael. Then at her phone. Then back at her food. Derek is such a drama queen, she muttered. Always calling about something. Michael did not respond. Just kept cutting his steak. The knife making small, precise sounds against the plate. Arthur watched him. Watched the way his jaw was clenched. The way his eyes stayed fixed on his food, refusing to meet anyone's gaze. Something was very wrong with the business. He could feel it. But Michael was not going to tell them. He never told them anything anymore. Arthur set down his fork and folded his hands on the table. His scarred right hand resting on top of his left. Across the room, Miguel was watching from near the bar. The woman at table 12 was still recording. And at their table, they sat in silence. 4 people eating a meal that no one wanted. Pretending they were a family. The check was coming soon. And when it did, everything would change. The waiter returned to clear their plates. Martha's soup bowl was still nearly full. The congealed cheese untouched. Arthur's salad was half eaten. Vanessa's lobster plate was scraped clean. So was Michael's steak. Can I interest anyone in dessert this evening? The waiter asked politely. Vanessa did not hesitate. I will have the crème brûlée. Excellent choice. And for you, sir? Michael glanced up from his phone. Chocolate lava cake. The waiter turned to Martha. Ma'am? Oh, no, thank you, Martha said softly. I am quite full. And you, sir? Nothing for me, Arthur said. The waiter nodded and left. $24 for Vanessa's dessert. $22 for Michael's. $46 for sugar and cream. While his wife sat there with her hands folded, having eaten maybe 3 spoonfuls of $18 soup. Martha shifted in her seat. Arthur saw her wince. The ulcer. It had to be worse now. They had been sitting here for over 2 hours. The stain on her stocking had darkened. Spread wider. But she said nothing. Just reached for her purse and pulled out her phone. Hey, Michael, honey, she said, her voice tentative. Hopeful. I wanted to show you something. Michael's eyes stayed on his own screen. His thumb scrolling. Emichim. I found some old photos of you when you were little. Martha's hands trembled slightly as she opened her photo app. I thought, with the baby coming, you might want to see them. Remember? She held the phone out toward him, tilting the screen so he could see. Arthur could make out the image from where he sat. Michael, maybe 3 or 4 years old. Gap-toothed and grinning. Holding a toy fire truck Arthur had bought him for his birthday. That is you with the truck your father got you, Martha said, smiling at the memory. You carried that thing everywhere for a year. Would not let it out of your sight. Uh-huh, Michael said, not looking up. And this one? Martha swiped to the next photo. This was your first day of kindergarten. Remember? You were so nervous. But you were so brave. Mom, I am kind of in the middle of something, Michael interrupted. Still scrolling. Martha's smile faltered. Oh. I just thought, with the baby, you might want to. Maybe later. Okay? He did not look at her. Did not even glance at the phone she was holding out like an offering. Just kept scrolling through whatever was on his screen. Posts from people he had never met. Pictures of things that did not matter. Martha lowered the phone slowly. Of course. Later. She closed the app and set the phone face down on the table. Her hands went back to her lap, folding together the way they always did when she was trying not to cry. Arthur watched Michael. Watched the way he sat there completely oblivious to what he had just done. His mother had tried to share a piece of his childhood with him. Tried to connect him to the life growing inside his wife. To remind him that he had been that small once. That vulnerable. That loved. And he dismissed her without even looking. Suddenly, Arthur was back in a different hospital. A different crisis. 40 years ago. May 1984. He had come home from his night shift at the station at 6 in the morning. 24 hours of back-to-back calls. A kitchen fire. A car wreck on the highway. An apartment building where the smoke detectors had been disabled and 3 people nearly did not make it out. He was exhausted. Covered in soot. Ready to fall into bed. But when he walked in the door, Martha met him in the hallway. Her face pale. It is Michael, she said. He is burning up. Arthur found him in his bedroom. 6 years old. Small for his age. Curled up under his Star Wars sheets. His face was flushed red. His hair plastered to his forehead with sweat. When Arthur touched his skin, it was like touching a radiator. The thermometer read 104 degrees. How long? Arthur asked Martha. Since midnight. I gave him medicine. But it is not going down. Arthur scooped Michael up. He weighed maybe 40 pounds. Light as air. Carried him to the car. Martha grabbed a bag. They drove to the same hospital where she would be treated decades later. Pneumonia, the doctor said. Severe. They admitted Michael immediately. Started antibiotics. Kept him for 3 days. The bill came to $847. In 1984, that was a fortune. Arthur was making maybe $22,000 a year at the station. They had a mortgage. A car payment. Groceries. Utilities. $847 might as well have been $8,000. Arthur had a truck back then. A 1978 Ford. Nothing fancy. But it ran. He had bought it used for $3,000 a few years earlier. It was paid off. No payments. He sold it to a guy at the station for $1,500. Took the loss because he needed the cash immediately. Then he picked up every extra shift he could. Worked 60 hours a week for 3 months straight until they caught back up. But the night they admitted Michael. That first night, when they did not know if the antibiotics would work. If his fever would break. If he would be okay. Arthur sat in a chair beside his son's hospital bed and held his small, hot hand in his. Michael was unconscious. Delirious with fever. But Arthur held on anyway. And he made a promise. "I will always take care of you," he whispered. "No matter what. You are my son. And I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Always." Michael had not heard him. But Arthur meant it. Now, 40 years later, he sat across from that same boy. A man now. 46 years old. Wearing a suit that cost more than that hospital bill. And watched him scroll through his phone while his mother tried to show him pictures of the child he used to be. The child Arthur had sold his truck for. The child he had worked 60-hour weeks for. The child whose hand he had held in a hospital room while promising him the world. Michael could not even look at her. The desserts arrived. The waiter set them down with a flourish. Vanessa's crème brûlée in a perfect ceramic dish. The sugar on top caramelized to a golden shell. Michael's chocolate lava cake. Molten center oozing out when he cut into it with his fork. Vanessa took a bite and made a small sound of satisfaction. "Oh my God. This is amazing." Michael nodded, already halfway through his own. "Yeah. It is good." Neither of them looked at Martha. Neither of them noticed that she had not ordered anything. That she had barely eaten all night. That the stain on her stocking had spread to the size of a silver dollar. Now dark and wet. Arthur reached under the table and found her hand again. It was ice cold despite the warmth of the restaurant. She squeezed back weakly. Across from them, Michael set down his fork and picked up his phone again. Started scrolling. The cake sat half-finished on his plate. Vanessa finished her crème brûlée and pushed the empty dish aside. She dabbed her mouth with her napkin. Checked her own phone. Then looked up at the ceiling like she was bored. The waiter appeared again. "Is there anything else I can get for you this evening?" Vanessa waved a hand dismissively. "No. We are good. Just the check, please." "Of course. I will be right back." The waiter disappeared. And just like that, it was here. The moment Arthur had been waiting for. The moment he had paid $600 to orchestrate. The moment when everything he had been holding inside for months, for years, maybe, would finally come out into the open. Vanessa leaned back in her chair. Satisfied. Full. Ready to leave. Michael set his phone down and reached for his wallet. A reflex. The casual gesture of someone who had never had to worry about whether there was enough inside to cover the bill. Martha's hand trembled in Arthur's. And he thought about that promise he had made in 1984. About the truck he had sold. About the shifts he had worked. About every sacrifice he had made because he loved his son and wanted him to have a good life. He had given Michael everything. And Michael could not even look at his mother when she tried to show him a photograph. The waiter was coming back now. Arthur could see him across the restaurant. A black folder in his hand. The check. Arthur let go of Martha's hand and straightened in his seat. 40 years ago, he had promised to protect his son. Tonight, he was going to protect his wife from him. The waiter returned with a black leather folder. He approached the table carefully, the way you would approach something fragile. Set it down in the center. Equidistant from all of them. Neutral territory. "Whenever you are ready," he said quietly. Then stepped back. For a moment, no one moved. The folder sat there on the white tablecloth like a small black stone. Arthur could see the edge of the receipt peeking out. White paper with neat rows of numbers. Vanessa reached for it first. Of course she did. She flipped it open and her eyes scanned down the page. Arthur watched her face as she calculated. Lips moving slightly. A small frown forming between her perfectly shaped eyebrows. Appetizers. $131. Entrees. $314. Desserts. $46. Wine. $142. Tax and gratuity. $54.42. Total. $687.42. Arthur already knew the number. Had known it since 3 o'clock this afternoon when he had handed Miguel $600 in cash and told him to cover whatever came next. Vanessa set the folder down and looked up at the waiter. His name tag read Tyler. He was maybe 25. Clean cut. The kind of kid who was probably working his way through college or saving up for something. He had no idea what was about to happen. Tyler, Vanessa said, her voice bright and clear, carrying across the table. We are going to need separate checks. The waiter blinked. Separate checks? Yes. Vanessa gestured at the receipt. 2 checks. One for us. She indicated herself and Michael. And one for them. She pointed across the table at Martha. Tyler looked confused. I am sorry, ma'am. I am not sure I understand. You would like to split the check evenly or? No, no. Vanessa waved her hand dismissively. We will pay for our meals. They can pay for theirs. She paused, then added with a small laugh. Do not worry. We are not paying for her. She said it loud enough that the tables around them could hear. The word hung in the air like smoke. Her. Not them. Not his in-laws. Not Arthur and Martha. Her. Like Martha was an object. A burden. Something other. Tyler's face went red. Ma'am, I do not think. But Michael cut him off. That is fine. His son's voice was calm. Matter of fact. Like he was confirming a dinner reservation or agreeing to a wine selection. Separate checks. That works. And then, God help him, he nodded. A single clear nod of agreement. He had heard what his wife said. Heard her dismiss his mother. Heard her say they would not pay for her. Heard the cruelty in her voice. And he agreed. Arthur watched Martha's face. Watched the exact moment the words registered. Watched her eyes go wide, then glassy. Watched her lips part slightly, like she wanted to say something but could not find the words. A tear slid down her cheek. Then another. She did not wipe them away. Did not make a sound. Just sat there frozen while tears fell silently onto the white tablecloth, leaving small dark spots on the fabric. Arthur did nothing. He picked up his water glass and took a sip. Set it down carefully. His hand was steady. His face was calm. Inside, he was burning. But he had learned a long time ago that the most dangerous fires are the ones that burn cold. Tyler stood there stammering. Sir. Ma'am. I really do not think we can. I mean, the check is already totaled and I would have to ask my manager. That is fine, Vanessa said breezily. Go ask your manager. We will wait. She leaned back in her chair. Satisfied. Like she had just solved a problem. Like she had done something reasonable. Around them, the restaurant had gone quiet. Not completely. There was still the murmur of conversation from distant tables. The soft clink of silverware. The low background music. But their immediate area had fallen into a hush. People were staring. Arthur could see them in his peripheral vision. The couple 2 tables over had stopped eating. Their forks suspended halfway to their mouths. The family with teenagers had all turned to look. The woman at table 12 had her phone angled directly at them. And she was not the only one. Phones were coming out all around them. Slowly. Subtly. People raising devices and angling screens. 20 of them. Maybe more. Little glowing rectangles capturing everything. The moment had witnesses. Vanessa did not notice. Or if she did not care. She picked up her wine glass. Still a finger left in the bottom. Took a sip. I mean, honestly, she said, setting the glass down. She was not even looking at Martha anymore. just talking like she was explaining something obvious to Tyler. They are on a fixed income. They understand, right? She glanced at Arthur. Expecting agreement. Expecting him to nod and smile and confirm that yes, they understood they were poor and old, and it made perfect sense that they should pay their own way. Arthur said nothing. Just looked at her. His face was stone. Vanessa's smile faltered slightly. She looked at Michael, who had already gone back to his phone. Scrolling through something. Disconnected. Martha's shoulders shook. Just once. A small tremor that she tried to suppress. Arthur reached under the table and found her hand. It was ice cold. Trembling badly. He wrapped his fingers around hers and squeezed gently. She squeezed back. Barely any strength left in her grip. And then, Arthur reached into his jacket with his other hand. The folder he had been carrying since 3 o'clock this afternoon. The one he had kept close all through dinner. Pressed against his ribs like a secret. Like ammunition. He pulled it out slowly and set it on the table. It was old. The kind with a fraying elastic band wrapped around it to keep it closed. The cardboard was soft at the edges. Worn from being handled. Inside were papers. Documents. Evidence. 40 years worth of truth. Tyler was still standing there, his face bright red, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Vanessa was watching Arthur now. Her expression shifting from smug satisfaction to confusion. "What is that?" she asked. Arthur did not answer. The restaurant around them had gone even quieter. More phones were up now. 30, maybe 40. A sea of glowing screens all pointed at their table. Michael glanced up from his phone. Finally noticing something was happening. "Dad?" Arthur looked at his son. At the man he had raised. The boy he had held in a hospital bed 40 years ago. Promising he would always protect him. The man who just nodded in agreement when his wife said they would not pay for his mother. Arthur pushed his chair back. The legs scraped against the floor. A harsh sound in the silence. He stood up slowly. Deliberately. He kept one hand on the folder. Kept the other hand resting on the edge of the table. And he looked at his son. Every eye in the restaurant was on him now. Every conversation had stopped. Even the background music seemed quieter. Martha was still crying silently. Her hand pressed to her mouth. Vanessa's smile had disappeared entirely. She looked uncertain now. Almost nervous. Michael set his phone down. "Dad, what are you?" $687.42, Arthur said quietly. His voice was not loud. He did not shout. Did not raise it at all. But in that silence, it carried. "That is what this meal cost," he continued. "That is what you were about to ask your mother to pay for. $18 for soup she could not eat. Well, you ordered a $185 steak." Michael opened his mouth. Closed it. Vanessa started to say something. But Arthur held up one hand. "I am not finished," he said. And then he opened the folder. Arthur placed his hand on the folder, ready to pull out the first document. When Miguel appeared beside their table. He moved quickly but not urgently. The smooth efficiency of someone who had managed a restaurant for years and knew exactly when to intervene. His presence commanded attention. Conversations at nearby tables fell silent. Even Tyler stepped back slightly. Relief flickering across his young face. Miguel looked at Tyler first. His voice calm and clear. "There is no check," he said. Tyler blinked. "Sir." "There is no check to split," Miguel repeated. Louder now so the surrounding tables could hear. "The bill has already been paid." Vanessa's head snapped up. "What?" Michael set his phone down. Confusion crossing his face. "What do you mean it has already been paid?" Miguel turned to Arthur. Arthur saw the question in his eyes. The silent asking of permission to continue. Arthur gave him a small nod. Mr. Bennett, Miguel said, addressing him formally but with warmth, paid for this entire meal earlier this afternoon. At 3 o'clock. In cash. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Vanessa stared at Miguel like he had just spoken a foreign language. That does not make sense. Why would? $600, Arthur said quietly, cutting her off. All eyes shifted to him. He kept his hand on the folder. Did not open it yet. Just stood there, looking at his son and his daughter-in-law. I gave Miguel $600 in cash at 3 o'clock this afternoon, he continued. His voice was steady. Calm. The same tone he had used for 32 years talking people through fires. Through panic. Through crisis. That was our rent money for May. We are already 2 months behind. He paused. Our landlord started sending eviction notices last week. Martha made a small sound. A choked gasp that she tried to muffle with her hand. Arthur squeezed her shoulder gently. Then looked back at Michael. I took our rent money, he said, and I paid for this dinner in advance. Because I knew, he paused, let the words hang there for a beat. I knew you would do exactly what you just did. The silence in that section of the restaurant was absolute. Phones were still raised. Still recording. But the people holding them had gone completely still. The couple 2 tables over, the ones who had been holding hands earlier, were staring with their mouths open. The family with teenagers had all set down their forks. The woman at table 12 had her phone steady as stone. Capturing every word. Michael's face had gone pale. Not just pale. Gray. Like all the blood had drained out of him. Dad, he started, his voice hoarse. I did not know you were going to what? Arthur asked. Pay for my own wife's dinner? Pay so she would not be humiliated? He shook his head. No, son. You did not know. Because you did not ask. You did not wonder. You just assumed we would what? Figure it out? Vanessa found her voice then. This is ridiculous, she said. But there was a tremor in it now. Uncertainty creeping in at the edges. You did not have to do that. We would have. Would have what? Arthur interrupted. Paid for her? He looked directly at Vanessa. You just told the waiter in front of this entire restaurant that you would not pay for her. He gestured to Martha. You said it. Loud enough for everyone to hear. And he pointed at Michael, nodded. He agreed. Michael flinched like Arthur had slapped him. Around them, whispers started. Murmurs of shock and sympathy. Oh my God, someone said. That is his mother. Another voice whispered. He used his rent money, a woman said, her voice breaking slightly. His rent money? Miguel stood quietly to the side. His hands clasped in front of him. His face carefully neutral. But Arthur could see the tightness around his eyes. The way his jaw was set. He was angry on their behalf. But he was too professional to show it. Tyler looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Vanessa's face had flushed red now. Whether from shame or anger, Arthur could not tell. Probably both. You are making a scene, she hissed. Everyone is staring. Good, Arthur said simply. Let them stare. Let them see. He moved his hand back to the folder. Flipping it open fully now. Inside were papers. Documents he had carefully organized over the past week. Ever since he had heard Michael and Vanessa talking in that hospital hallway 8 weeks ago. I paid for dinner, Arthur said, looking at Michael, so your mother would not have to sit here and be told she was not worth $18 worth of soup. But that is not why we are here. That is not what this is about. He pulled out the first document. Carefully. Slowly. So everyone could see he was handling something important. And this, he said, holding it up, is about where $2 million went. Michael's eyes went wide. Vanessa's mouth fell open. And the crowd, the witnesses, the recording phones, the 50-plus people who had now stopped eating entirely to watch their table, leaned in closer. Arthur held the paper at an angle so Michael could see it. So the people at the nearest tables could see it. So the cameras could capture it. It was a bank statement. Old but preserved in a plastic sleeve. The date at the top read March 15, 2008. The transaction line was highlighted in yellow. Transferred to Michael Bennett. Amount: $2 million. Do you remember this? Arthur asked quietly. Michael stared at the document. His hands had started to shake. Do you remember? Arthur repeated. His voice harder now. The day I sat you down in our kitchen and gave you everything? Every cent your grandparents left me when they died? $2 million. You were 30 years old. You said, his voice caught slightly, but he pushed through. You said you would make me proud. Martha was crying openly now. Her shoulders shaking. Michael's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Vanessa reached for the document like she wanted to snatch it away. But Arthur pulled it back. I am not done, he said. Miguel had moved closer, positioning himself between Vanessa and Arthur. Subtly protective. Ready to intervene if she tried anything. His eyes met Arthur's briefly. Arthur saw something there. Recognition. Understanding. Arthur set the bank statement down on the table where everyone could see it. Then he reached back into the folder. That was 16 years ago, he said. $2 million. Your mother and I gave you everything. We kept nothing. We trusted you. He pulled out the next document. And this, his voice dropped to almost a whisper, but in that silence, everyone heard it, is what we have been paying ever since. The paper he held now was a hospital bill. March 10, 2024. Patient, Martha Bennett. Diabetic ketoacidosis. Amount due, $12,847. Status, unpaid. Arthur laid it on the table next to the bank statement. The crowd had gone from silent to stunned. Sharp intakes of breath. A woman at a nearby table had her hand over her mouth. Tears in her eyes. Michael was staring at the two documents like they were written in a language he could not understand. Arthur was not finished. Not even close. He reached back into the folder and pulled out the rest. Not one document. Not two. A stack. Hospital bills. Doctor's invoices. Pharmacy receipts. Insurance denial letters. Collection notices. 3 years' worth of paper held together with a binder clip. The edges worn soft from being handled too many times. He set the stack on the table beside the two documents already there. The $2 million transfer and the $12,000 hospital bill. The contrast was impossible to miss. One piece of paper showing everything they had given. Dozens of others showing everything it had cost them since. Vanessa found her voice first. That was 16 years ago, she said, gesturing at the bank statement. Her tone was defensive. Almost angry. You cannot expect. I cannot expect what? Arthur interrupted. His voice cutting through hers. I cannot expect my son to remember that his parents gave him $2 million. That we kept nothing for ourselves. That we trusted him. Vanessa's mouth snapped shut. Arthur picked up the stack of medical bills and held them up so everyone could see. And this, he said, is what your mother and I have been paying since we gave you everything. He set the stack down and began pulling out individual sheets. Laying them across the table one by one. Like he was dealing cards. Each one had a number highlighted in yellow. Each one represented a piece of their lives they had traded for survival. Insulin, Arthur said, holding up the first receipt. Your mother has type 2 diabetes. She needs insulin to live. Without insurance, it costs $750 a month. Over the past 3 years, that is $27,000. He set it down and picked up the next one. Emergency room visits. $10,000. 3 trips in 2 years because her glucose levels went so high, she nearly did not make it. Another paper. Hospital stays. $70,000. That includes the ICU stay from March when she went into ketoacidosis because, his voice hardened, because she had been rationing her insulin for months. Cutting her doses in half to make them last longer. Martha made a sound. A choked sob that she tried to muffle with her napkin. Her shoulders shook. Arthur kept going. Wound care. $7,200. For the ulcer on her foot that will not heal. Because her circulation is damaged and we cannot afford the specialist visits she needs. Next paper. Medications. $7,200. Blood pressure pills. Cholesterol medication. Pain management. None of it covered. Next. Medical equipment. $18,000. Glucose monitors. Testing strips. Bandages. Compression socks. Walkers. Everything insurance denied. Last one. Doctor visits. $6,900. Endocrinologist. Podiatrist. Primary care. Cash payment only. Because we lost our insurance when I could not afford the premiums anymore. Arthur set down the final receipt and looked at Michael. Do you want to know what all of that adds up to? He asked quietly. Michael did not answer. Could not answer. Just stared at the table covered in papers. $146,300, Arthur said. Each word fell like a stone into still water. That is what we have paid in the last 3 years alone. While your mother cut her insulin doses in half. While her foot started rotting because we could not afford proper treatment. While I drove strangers around at night for $20 an hour because my pension could not cover it. The restaurant was silent except for the sound of Martha crying. Arthur picked up one of the insulin receipts. The most recent one from last month. This is from April, he said. $750. We did not have it. So she took half her normal dose. And then half again. And by March 10th, her body was eating itself from the inside out. He held up the hospital bill from that day. The $12,000 one. This is what happened when she finally collapsed. Diabetic ketoacidosis. Her glucose was 450. His voice cracked slightly. The doctor told me that if I had waited another hour to bring her in, she might not have made it. Someone in the crowd, a woman at a nearby table, let out a sob. Arthur looked at Michael. Really looked at him. At his son who sat there with his expensive suit and his $1,000 watch. Staring at the evidence of his mother's suffering like it was happening to a stranger. Her foot is rotting, Arthur said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Right now. Under the table. That stain you see on her stocking? That is not water. That is from the ulcer that has been bleeding all night. Because we could not afford the supplies to dress it properly this week. Martha covered her face with both hands. Her whole body shaking with sobs. Arthur stepped around the table and put his hand on her shoulder. Squeezed gently. It is okay, he whispered to her. It is okay. But it was not okay. None of this was okay. Arthur turned back to Michael. Around them, the restaurant had transformed into something else entirely. This was not dinner anymore. This was a reckoning. And every person in that room, 50, 60 people, maybe more, was a witness. He could see tears on faces. A man at the table behind Michael had his head in his hands. The woman who had sobbed earlier was crying openly, her husband's arm around her shoulders. Even some of the wait staff had stopped what they were doing to watch. Their eyes red. The phones were still recording. All of them. Capturing every word. Every number. Every tear. Michael's face had gone beyond pale. Now it was gray. Ashen. His hands shook where they rested on the table. He opened his mouth several times. But no sound came out. Finally, he managed, "Dad, I did not know. I swear I did not know it was this bad." Arthur looked at him for a long moment. "You did not know," he repeated slowly, "because you never asked." Those 5 words hung in the air like an indictment. "Not once," Arthur continued. His voice quiet but carrying in that absolute silence. "In 3 years, did you ask how we were doing? Not once did you ask if we needed help. You came to our house twice in 3 years. Twice. And both times, you stayed less than an hour." Michael's mouth worked silently. "You called on our birthdays," Arthur said. "Left messages. Sent cards. But you never asked." He gestured at the papers spread across the table. "We were drowning. And you never even noticed we were underwater." Michael's voice broke. "I thought you were fine. You never said." "We never said." Arthur felt something crack open inside him. Something that had been pressed down for years. "How were we supposed to tell you when you would not answer our calls? When you were too busy to visit? When the only time we saw you was at holidays? And even then, you spent the whole time on your phone?" Tears were streaming down Michael's face now. Real tears. Maybe the first genuine emotion Arthur had seen from him all night. "Dad, please." $2 million, Arthur said, picking up the bank statement again. "Your grandparents worked their entire lives to leave that money. They died in a car accident on the highway. And 3 weeks later, I signed every cent over to you. Because I thought," his voice caught. "I thought you would do something good with it. Something that mattered." He set the statement down and picked up the stack of medical bills again. "And here is what happened instead," he said. "Your mother is dying by inches because we cannot afford to keep her alive. I am working myself into the ground at 71 years old. We are about to be evicted. And you," he looked at Michael. "You ordered a $185 steak. And did not even ask your mother if she was okay." Michael put his head in his hands and wept. Vanessa sat frozen. Her face white. Her eyes darting between Arthur and the documents and the crowd of people watching them. But Arthur was not done. Not yet. He reached into the folder one more time. "And there is more," he said quietly. Michael looked up. His face streaked with tears. "Dad, please. I cannot." "You need to hear this," Arthur said. "All of it." He pulled out the next document. The next document Arthur pulled from the folder was not about Martha. It was about him. He held it up. A single page. Medical letterhead at the top. Neat typed lines that had changed everything when he had first read them 7 weeks ago. March 3, 2024, Arthur read aloud. His voice steady despite the tremor he felt inside. Patient Arthur Bennett. Diagnosis, Stage 2 prostate cancer. PSA level 47 nanograms per milliliter. The restaurant, already silent, somehow grew quieter. Recommended treatment, Arthur continued. Immediate radiation therapy and hormone treatment. Estimated cost, he paused and let that number hang in the air for a beat. $78,500. He set the paper down on top of the medical bills. On top of the bank statement. On top of the evidence of 3 years of suffering. "I have cancer," Arthur said simply, looking at Michael. "I have had it since March 3rd. 7 days before your mother collapsed. And I have not treated it. I have not told anyone. I have not done anything about it because," his voice cracked slightly. "Because we did not have $78,000. We did not have 7,800. We barely had 78. Martha made a sound beside him. A sharp, wounded gasp. She grabbed his arm. Arthur, she whispered. You did not tell me. You did not. I could not, Arthur said, turning to her briefly. We could not afford your insulin. How was I supposed to tell you we needed another 80,000 for me? Michael stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Dad, no, he said, his voice breaking. You cannot, you have to get treatment. You have to. I chose your mother over my own life, Arthur said, cutting him off. His voice was calm now. Matter of fact. That is what you do when you love someone. You make the hard choice. You sacrifice. He picked up the cancer diagnosis and held it next to the stack of Martha's medical bills. This is what love looks like, he said. Not lobster tails and designer dresses. Not Porsches and $4,000 vacations. This. He gestured at the papers. Sacrifice. Going without so someone else can have. That is love. Arthur set the diagnosis down and reached into the folder one last time. And this, he said, pulling out a small stack of printed pages, is what the opposite of love looks like. Vanessa had been sitting very still. Her face pale. Her hands gripping the edge of the table. But when she saw what Arthur was holding, her eyes went wide. What is that? She asked. Her voice tight. Arthur held up the first page. A printed receipt. The kind you get from an online purchase. This, he said, reading from it, is from a website called babybump.com. Order date, March 25, 2024. 1 silicone pregnancy belly. 14-week size. Price, $47.99. The crowd erupted in gasps. Vanessa shot to her feet. That is, you do not, that is insane. Is it? Arthur held up the second page. This is from a website called Fake Ultrasound Generator. You upload a photo, add a date, and it creates a medical-looking ultrasound image. Free service. Takes about 5 minutes. He set both pages on the table and looked at Vanessa. Your wife, Arthur said to Michael, though he was still looking at Vanessa, is not pregnant. She never was. That belly is $48 worth of silicone. You are crazy, Vanessa's voice was shrill now. Panicked. You are making this up because you are jealous that we are successful and you are not. She put her hand on her stomach protectively. Or what should have been protectively, if there had been anything real to protect. But when she moved, something shifted. The fake silicone belly she had been wearing all evening was held in place by an elastic band around her waist. After 2 hours of sitting, eating, drinking wine, that elastic had loosened. When she stood up quickly, when she moved suddenly, when she tried to gesture indignantly, it slipped. Just an inch. Maybe 2. But it was enough. The bottom edge of the silicone belly separated from her actual stomach. In the space between, in that small gap visible to everyone at the surrounding tables, to everyone with a phone pointed at them, they could all see it. The prosthetic. The fake. The lie. Someone gasped. A sharp intake of breath that turned into a startled cry. Vanessa looked down. Saw what had happened. Her face went from pale to crimson in an instant. She grabbed at the belly with both hands, trying to push it back into place. Trying to smooth down her dress. Trying to hide what everyone had already seen. But it was too late. The phone zoomed in. Captured it. The silicone edge. The gap. The proof. Oh my God, someone whispered. She faked it, another voice said. The pregnancy was fake. The whispers spread like wildfire. Vanessa stood there, hands pressed to her stomach, her face burning red. Tears started streaming down her cheeks. But these were not tears of sadness. These were tears of humiliation. Of being caught. Of having nowhere left to hide. I can explain, she said, her voice breaking. It is not what it looks like. It is exactly what it looks like, Arthur said quietly. He picked up the receipts again and held them higher so the crowd could see. 14 weeks pregnant, he said. That is what you told us tonight. That is what you told Martha while she cried tears of joy, thinking she was going to be a grandmother. He looked at Vanessa. You lied. You bought a $48 prop. And you lied to a dying woman about the one thing that might have brought her comfort. Vanessa opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. No words came out. Arthur was not done. I heard you, he said, turning back to Michael. 8 weeks ago at the hospital, when your mother was in the ICU fighting for her life. Michael's face went gray. I heard you in the hallway, Arthur continued. His voice dropping lower. Colder. Talking to her, he gestured at Vanessa. About your mother's life insurance policy. $50,000. And I heard you say, he had to pause, had to force the words out. I heard you say that you just had to wait. Wait for her to pass. Wait for the insurance money. No, Michael whispered. Dad, no. I did not mean. You asked how much longer she had, Arthur said. And she, he looked at Vanessa. Said maybe a year. Maybe less. And you both agreed to wait. The silence in the restaurant was deafening. Michael sank back into his chair. His hands covering his face. His shoulders shook. He was sobbing. Huge, racking sobs that shook his whole body. I am sorry, he choked out. Dad, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I do not know what I was thinking. I do not know how God, what have I done? Martha stood up beside Arthur. Her hand found his. Squeezed so hard it hurt. We are leaving, she said quietly. Her voice was steady. Strong. Arthur. Let us go. Arthur put his arm around her waist, supporting her weight as she swayed slightly. The ulcer on her foot had bled through the bandage. Through her stocking. He could feel her trembling against him. But she stood. She stood with her head up. Her shoulders back. And she looked at her son. At the man weeping into his hands. With something that might have been pity. Or grief. Or both. Goodbye, Michael, she said softly. And then they turned to leave. For 5 seconds, 5 long, suspended seconds, the restaurant was absolutely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the phones stayed motionless. Capturing the moment in frozen stillness. And then, from somewhere in the back of the restaurant, one person started clapping. Slow. Deliberate. A single pair of hands coming together in applause. Then another person joined in. An older woman 2 tables to their left. She set down her wine glass and brought her hands together. Firm, deliberate claps that echoed through the silence. Then another. A man near the bar, still holding his drink in one hand, clapping with the other against his thigh. Then 10 people. 20. 30. And then everyone. The entire restaurant. Every table in their section, spreading outward like a wave, rose to their feet. 80 people, maybe more. Standing. Applauding. Not the polite golf clap of a business dinner. Real applause. The kind that comes from somewhere deep. The sound was overwhelming. Arthur stood there with his arm around Martha. Both of them frozen. Listening to an entire room of strangers tell them that they had seen what happened. That they had witnessed it. That they were not alone. You are a good man, sir, the man at the next table said. His voice thick. He was maybe 60. Gray-haired. Wearing a suit that had probably cost more than Arthur's car. A damn good man. God bless you both, a woman called out from somewhere behind them. You did the right thing, another voice said. We are praying for you. The voices came from everywhere. Overlapping. Sincere. People Arthur had never met. People who had just watched him expose his son's cruelty and his daughter-in-law's lies in front of 100 witnesses. And instead of looking away, instead of going back to their meals and pretending they had not seen, they were standing. Applauding. Blessing them. Arthur felt Martha sag against him. He held her tighter. That was when Miguel stepped forward. He had been standing near the bar, hands clasped in front of him, watching the ovation with tears streaming down his face. Now he walked toward them through the crowd. And the crowd parted for him, creating a path. When he reached their table, he stopped. Looked at Arthur for a long moment. His eyes were red. His face wet. "Mr. Bennett," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "I need to tell you something." Arthur nodded. Unable to speak. "I know who you are," Miguel said. "I have known since you walked in tonight. Since I saw that scar on your hand." He gestured at Arthur's right hand. At the silvered line of burned tissue running from his knuckles to his wrist. 1994, Miguel continued. August 17th. There was a warehouse fire on East Van Buren Street. "Do you remember?" Arthur stared at him. "Yes. I remember. My father was in that warehouse," Miguel said. "Roberto Alvarez. He was a maintenance worker. The fire started in the electrical room. He was checking the breakers when the whole system went up. A beam fell. Pinned him. The memory came back in pieces. The warehouse. The smoke so thick you could not see your hand in front of your face. The calls for help. The man trapped under steel and concrete. Flames spreading fast. You went in," Miguel said, his voice breaking. "The other firefighters said it was too dangerous. The building was coming down. But you went in anyway." Arthur remembered grabbing that beam. Remembered the heat even through his gloves. Remembered the way his right hand had burned when he had finally gotten enough leverage to shift it. "You pulled him out," Miguel said. "You carried him out of that building 30 seconds before the roof collapsed. The doctor said he had second-degree burns and smoke damage to his lungs. But he lived. He lived another 25 years. Arthur's throat was tight. "He passed in 2019, Miguel said, nodding. The lung damage from the smoke finally caught up with him. "But Mr. Bennett," he stepped closer. "He talked about you every single day. Every day for 25 years. He told us about the firefighter who saved his life. The man who did not give up when everyone else said it was too late." Tears were running down Arthur's face now. "You were a hero to our family," Miguel said. "To my father. To me." Arthur felt something break loose inside him. Something he had been holding tight for months. Maybe years. "I did not know," he managed. "I never knew what happened to him after. We pulled so many people out over the years. I never." "He knew," Miguel said. "He never forgot." Miguel reached into his jacket and pulled out a check. He handed it to Arthur. "This is from the restaurant," he said. $5,000. It is not enough. It is not even close to enough. But it is what I can give you tonight." Arthur looked down at the check. $5,000. Enough to pay the rent they owed. Enough to buy Martha's insulin for months. Enough to breathe. "I cannot accept this," Arthur said, his voice hoarse. "You can," Miguel said firmly. "You will." He pulled out a small card. Laminated. Official looking. Pressed it into Arthur's hand. "Free meals for life. You and Mrs. Bennett. Anytime, for as long as this restaurant stands. It is the least we can do." Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. The same envelope Arthur had given him at 3 o'clock that afternoon. "And this," Miguel said, "is your $600. Your rent money. I am giving it back." Arthur stared at the envelope. The bill was less than I expected, Miguel said, smiling through his tears. And even if it was not, Mr. Bennett, you saved my father's life. You gave me 25 more years with him. 25 years of birthdays and holidays and conversations. You gave me time I never would have had. He pressed the envelope into Arthur's hand. Take it, he said. Please. Let me do this one thing. The applause was still going. Still building. People were crying now. Not just them. But strangers at tables across the room. The woman at table 12 had her phone down, wiping tears from her eyes. Arthur looked at Miguel. At this man whose father he had pulled from a burning building 30 years ago. This man who had helped him tonight without knowing why. This man who had given him back his dignity and more. And he broke. The tears he had been holding back all night, all month, all year, finally came. They poured out of him in great, shaking sobs that he could not control. He pulled Miguel into a hug and held on like he was the only thing keeping him upright. Thank you, he managed between gasps. Thank you. Miguel hugged him back hard. No, Mr. Bennett. Thank you. Thank you for my father. Thank you for everything. When Arthur finally let go, he turned to Martha. She was crying too. Her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shaking. Let us go home, he said softly, putting his arm around her waist. She nodded. Unable to speak. The crowd was still applauding as they walked toward the exit. They parted for them, creating a path through the tables. Through the witnesses. Through the phones still recording. People reached out to touch Arthur's shoulder. Martha's hand. Offering blessings and comfort as they passed. Arthur looked back once. Michael sat at the table with his head in his hands. His whole body shaking with sobs. Vanessa sat beside him. Arms wrapped around herself. Staring at nothing. The folder full of documents still lay spread across the white tablecloth. Evidence of everything they had lost. Everything they had taken. Everything that had finally been exposed. Neither of them looked up as Arthur and Martha left. Miguel walked them to the door. The applause followed them all the way. Echoing off the walls. Filling the space with sound. And then they were outside. The cool Arizona night air hit Arthur's face like a blessing. The parking lot was quiet. No voices. No phones. No witnesses. Just the distant sound of traffic and the rustle of wind through the palm trees. Martha leaned against Arthur heavily. He held her up. They stood there for a moment. Breathing. Letting the silence wash over them. It is over, she whispered. Arthur kissed the top of her head. It is over. And for the first time in 3 years, he believed it might actually be true. They had barely made it to the car when Arthur heard footsteps running behind them. Dad. Please. Michael's voice. Desperate. Broken. Arthur kept walking. His arms steady around Martha's waist, supporting her weight as she limped toward the old Honda. The parking lot was dim. Just a few streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. The air was cool now. Almost cold after the warmth of the restaurant. Dad. Please. Just let me explain. Arthur turned around. Michael stood 10 feet away. Breathing hard. His expensive suit wrinkled. His face streaked with tears that had not stopped. Behind him, Vanessa appeared. Moving slower. Her arms wrapped around herself. She had taken off the fake belly. Without it, her dress hung loose and shapeless. She looked smaller somehow. Diminished. There is nothing to explain, Arthur said quietly. You made yourself very clear in there. I did not mean, Michael's voice cracked. I was not thinking. I did not understand how bad things were. You did not ask, Arthur said. The same words from inside. They were still true. You had 16 years to ask. 16 years to wonder what happened to $2 million. 16 years to check on your mother. Michael flinched like Arthur had struck him. Vanessa stepped forward. This is just a misunderstanding, she said. But her voice lacked conviction now. The confidence from dinner was gone. We can work this out. We can. No, Arthur said. We cannot. And we will not. He turned back to the car. Fishing his keys from his pocket. Opened Martha's door first. Helped her into the passenger seat. Her hands were still shaking. The stain on her stocking had spread wider. Fine, Vanessa's voice rose. Sharp. Angry. You want the truth? Yes. I am in debt. $230,000 in credit cards and personal loans. I needed that inheritance money. Michael spun around to face her. What? $230,000? The business is failing, Vanessa said, her voice shrill now. Derek has been stealing from you for years. And I have been trying to keep us afloat while you never told me, Michael said, his voice hollow. You said we were fine. You said. Your parents were going to leave it to you anyway, Vanessa shouted. The insurance money. The house. Everything. Why should they keep it when we need it now? The way she said it. Like Martha and Arthur were just obstacles. Just things standing between them and money they had already decided was theirs. Michael stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, very quietly, "Get away from me. Michael. We are done." His voice was flat. Whatever we were. Whatever I thought we had. It is done. Get away from me. Vanessa's face contorted. Anger and desperation and something that might have been fear. She looked at him. Then at Arthur. Then at Martha sitting in the car. And then she lunged for Martha's door handle. You did this, she screamed. You ruined everything. Arthur stepped between her and the car. His hand on the lock button. The door clicked shut just as her fingers reached the handle. Don't, Arthur said. His voice was low. Calm. The same voice he had used 32 years ago talking people down from ledges. Do not touch her. Vanessa backed away. Her face red. Tears streaming down her cheeks now. Not the dignified tears Martha had cried. These were ugly tears. Tears of rage and humiliation and defeat. Arthur got into the driver's seat. Started the old Honda. That grinding noise again. The transmission that needed fixing. But tonight, it sounded like freedom. Michael stood in the parking lot watching them. He raised one hand halfway between a wave and a plea. But Arthur did not acknowledge it. Just shifted into reverse and backed out of the space. As they drove away, Arthur saw Michael in the rearview mirror. Still standing there. Still alone. Martha reached over and took Arthur's hand. They drove home in silence. Her fingers wrapped tight around his. Neither of them said a word. What Arthur did not know, what he would not learn until days later, was what happened after they left. The woman from table 12. Rachel. The one who had been recording everything on her phone. At 10:17 that night, she uploaded the video. Not to her personal page. To the main feed of one of those viral video platforms. The kind where stories explode overnight. Where ordinary moments become national news. She titled it, "Son Refuses to Pay for Dying Mother on Mother's Day. Watch what happens." Added hashtags. Mother's Day shame. Fake pregnancy. Inheritance lie. She had edited it down from the full 18 minutes to just 4.5. The key moments. Vanessa's line about not paying for her. The prepayment reveal. The medical bills. The cancer diagnosis. The fake belly slipping. The standing ovation. Everything. By 11 o'clock that night, the video had 1 million views. By 2 in the morning, it had 10 million. By 8 o'clock the next morning, less than 12 hours after it was posted, it had 40 million views and was trending #1 nationwide. The algorithm had picked it up. The story was too perfect. Too outrageous. Mother's Day. A dying woman. A fake pregnancy. A $2 million inheritance. Public humiliation at an upscale restaurant. It had everything. People shared it. Commented. Made reaction videos. The hashtags trended on every platform. By Monday morning, the national news had picked it up. The clips played on morning shows. Afternoon talk shows. Evening news. The story was everywhere. And with the attention came consequences. The FBI opened an investigation that same day. Wire fraud. Elder financial abuse. The video was evidence. Clear. Documented. Witnessed by dozens. They started with Vanessa's fake pregnancy scheme. The life insurance conversation Arthur had mentioned. But then they found Derek. Michael's business partner. The one who had been calling during dinner. The one who had been stealing for years, as Vanessa had said in the parking lot. The investigators pulled the company records. Found $3.2 million missing. Embezzled over 4 years through fake vendor contracts and inflated expenses. Derek had been bleeding the business dry while Michael, distracted, oblivious, had signed off on everything without looking. The dominoes were falling. And they were falling fast. Arthur did not watch the video. Not then. Not later. Not ever. He knew what had happened in that restaurant. He did not need to see it again. Did not need to read the comments or watch the reactions or become part of the spectacle. When the news vans showed up at their house 3 days later, Arthur did not answer the door. When reporters called, he hung up. When the story hit the national news, he turned off the television. Because none of that mattered. What mattered was Martha. Arthur spent that first night after the restaurant cleaning and dressing the ulcer on her foot. It took 40 minutes. The wound was deep. Infected. Worse than he had thought. But he cleaned it carefully. Applied fresh bandages. Elevated her leg on pillows. She watched him the whole time. Tears sliding quietly down her face. "I am sorry," she whispered. For what? For being a burden. For costing so much. For. "Stop," Arthur said, looking up at her. "You are not a burden. You never were. You are my wife. And I love you." She reached down and touched his face. "What do we do now?" Arthur took her hand and kissed her palm. "We rest. We heal. We take care of each other." "And Michael?" Arthur was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That is up to him now." The television stayed off that night. The phone stayed silent. The world outside could wait. For now, there was just them. Just Arthur and Martha. Just the two of them trying to survive another day. And that was enough. 3 days passed in quiet. Arthur and Martha stayed home. He dressed her ulcer twice a day. Drove her to a clinic appointment he could barely afford. Picked up her medications with the money Miguel had given them. They did not watch the news. Did not answer calls from numbers they did not recognize. Did not open the door when reporters knocked. Just them. Healing. Surviving. On the 3rd day, the phone rang. Arthur almost did not answer. But then he saw the name on the screen. Michael. He stared at it for 3 rings. 4. Then he picked up. "Dad." Michael's voice was hoarse. Broken. "Can we talk? Please. I know I do not deserve it. But please." Arthur was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Come to the house tomorrow. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Michael pulled up in his Porsche. The same one from Mother's Day. But when he got out, he looked different. No suit. Just jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt. His eyes were red and swollen, like he had not slept in days. Arthur let him in. They sat at the kitchen table. The same table where Arthur had signed over $2 million 16 years ago. I found something, Michael said quietly. His hands were shaking. Yesterday, I could not stop thinking about what you said. About the cancer. So I went to your house. I know I should not have. But I needed to know. He pulled out a stack of papers. Arthur's cancer bills. The ones he had hidden in the glove box of his truck. The diagnosis from March 3rd. The treatment plan. The cost estimate. All of it. It is $78,500, Michael read. His voice cracking. Stage 2. And you did not tell anyone. You did not get treatment. You just, he looked up at Arthur, tears streaming down his face. You chose Mom over yourself. Arthur said nothing. And then I found this, Michael continued. He pulled out a small spiral notebook. The kind you buy at the dollar store. Martha's handwriting covered the pages. Dates. Times. Insulin doses. Michael opened to a page dated March 8th. 2 days before her collapse. Half dose again, he read aloud. His voice barely a whisper. God forgive me for what I am doing. But we cannot afford the full amount. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe next week. He turned the page. March 9th. Half dose. Arthur does not know I am cutting back this much. I cannot tell him. He would give me his last dollar. And we need it for rent. Michael's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the notebook. She wrote this every day, he said. 4 months. Cutting her doses. Apologizing to God. Trying to survive. He looked at Arthur. And I was at a spa. Getting a massage. Ordering lobster. Buying Vanessa whatever she wanted. He set the notebook down and put his head in his hands. What have I done? He whispered. Dad, what have I done? I was so blind. So stupid. I thought I was successful. I thought I had everything figured out. And you were dying. Mom was dying. And I did not even notice. He looked up at Arthur. His face destroyed. I chose money over you, he said. I chose my wife and my business and my reputation over my own parents. How do I live with that? How do I? He broke completely. His whole body shook with sobs. Arthur got up from his chair. Walked around the table. And pulled his son into his arms. Michael clung to him like he was drowning. Like Arthur was the only thing keeping him above water. I am sorry, he gasped. I am so sorry, Dad. I am sorry. I know, Arthur said quietly. I know you are. They stood there for a long time. Father and son. Trying to find their way back to each other. The next day, there was a knock at the door. Arthur opened it to find a woman standing on his porch. Mid to late 40s. Dark hair. Familiar somehow. Though he could not place where he had seen her. Then he remembered. Table 12. The restaurant. The woman who had been recording everything. Mr. Bennett, she said softly. My name is Rachel. Rachel Martinez. Can I talk to you for a moment? Arthur let her in. She sat down at the kitchen table. The same spot Michael had sat the day before. And pulled an old photograph from her purse. I need to tell you something, she said. Something I should have told you a long time ago. She slid the photo across the table. It showed a man, maybe 60, gray hair, kind eyes, standing with his arm around a teenage girl. The girl had dark hair and a nervous smile. Written on the back in faded ink, Dad and Rachel. 1995. Arthur looked at the man in the photo. Looked at his face. And felt the world tilt. It was his father. "We share a father," Rachel said quietly. "Your father was my father too. He and my mother were together before he met your mother. I was born in 1976. He stayed in my life. Not full time. But he was there. He loved me. And he loved you." Arthur stared at her. At this woman who looked so familiar. Who had the same eyes as his father. The same slight curve to her mouth. "I found out about you when I was 16, Rachel continued. "He told me. Said I had a half-brother. A firefighter. A good man. But he also said your mother did not know about me. That it would hurt her to find out. So I stayed away." "Why now?" Arthur managed. "Because I saw the video," Rachel said simply. "I was at that restaurant because it was my father's favorite place. Miguel, his son, the man your father saved, he told me about a man who was coming in. A firefighter named Bennett. And I thought maybe it was you." She reached across the table and took Arthur's hand. "I recorded everything because I knew something important was happening," she said. "And when I saw what your son did to you, what his wife did, I could not just sit there. I had to do something. So I posted the video. And I made sure the world saw what I saw. A good man who had been forgotten by the people who should have loved him most." Tears were running down Arthur's face now. "You are my sister," he said. "I am your sister," Rachel confirmed. "And I am not going anywhere. Not anymore." Arthur stood up and hugged her. This stranger who was not a stranger. This sister he had never known he had. And he felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. The next day, Michael called again. "Dad, I did something," he said. "I started a fundraiser online. It is called Help My Parents After I Failed Them." He had launched it on one of those crowdfunding sites. Set the goal at $250,000. Enough to cover the medical debts. The cancer treatment. Everything. Within 24 hours, it had raised $180,000. The video had gone everywhere. 40 million views. And people were responding. Donating. Sharing. Leaving comments about their own parents. Their own regrets. By August, the total was $427,000. Michael paid off Martha's medical debt on June 15. Every cent of the $146,300. He paid for Arthur's cancer treatment on June 20. $78,500. The hospital scheduled Arthur for radiation immediately. He bought Martha an insulin pump on July 10. $18,000. It changed her life overnight. And he did something else. He moved back home. Sold his Porsche. Sold the house he and Vanessa had bought. Filed for divorce. Walked away from the business. Let the authorities handle Derek. And he came home. Every morning, he drove them to appointments. Every afternoon, he helped Martha with her medications. Every evening, he cooked dinner. Simple food. Nothing fancy. Just chicken and vegetables and conversation. Rachel came by 3 times a week. She was a nurse. Had been for 20 years. She helped with the medical care Martha needed. Changed dressings. Monitored glucose. Taught Michael how to do it right. In June, Arthur started radiation treatment for the cancer. 35 sessions. 5 days a week. 7 weeks total. Michael drove him to every single one. And every night, Michael stayed. Slept on their couch. Made breakfast in the morning. He was trying. Really trying. And slowly, So slowly Arthur almost did not notice at first, they started to heal. Not just their bodies. Their family. September 15th. The trial began in the federal courthouse in downtown Phoenix. Arthur did not attend. Neither did Martha. Their part in the story was over. Michael went, though. He sat in the back row every day. Alone. The trial lasted only 4 days. Vanessa's public defender advised her to plead guilty. The video evidence was insurmountable. 40 million people had watched Vanessa refuse to pay for a dying woman's dinner on Mother's Day. On the 4th day, Vanessa stood before the judge and entered a guilty plea on all 12 counts. The judge did not smile. She had seen the video. So had her clerks. Her bailiff. Half the courthouse staff. Then the judge read the sentence. 5 years in federal prison. No parole. Restitution of $230,000 to be paid upon release. 3 years of supervised probation after incarceration. Mandatory financial counseling. A ban from holding fiduciary responsibility over anyone age 65 or older. Vanessa stood motionless. Her attorney placed a hand on her shoulder. The judge struck her gavel once. And it was over. Derek's sentencing came the following week. 8 years. No possibility of early release. He did not fight it either. The accounting records were irrefutable. Arthur learned all of this from the newspaper. Michael sent him a text message after Vanessa's sentencing. It said, "It is done." Arthur replied, "How are you?" Michael did not answer for 6 hours. When he finally did, he wrote, "I do not know, Dad. I really do not know." That night, Arthur sat at the kitchen table with the newspaper spread in front of him. The headline read, "Guilty Verdict in Mother's Day Elder Abuse Case. 5 years for influencer." There was a photo of Vanessa being led out of the courthouse in handcuffs. Her head down. Her hair covering her face. Arthur stared at that photo for a long time. He did not feel victorious. He did not feel relieved. He felt tired and sad. Sad for Michael, who had loved a woman who tried to harm his mother. Sad for Vanessa, who traded her future for handbags and restaurant bills. Sad for the waste of it all. Martha's voice drifted in from the living room. "Arthur? You coming to bed?" "In a minute," he called back. He folded the newspaper carefully, creasing it along the center line. Then he walked into the living room. Martha had fallen asleep on the couch. Her head resting against the pillow Michael had bought her last month. Soft. Hypoallergenic. The kind that did not irritate her skin. Her insulin pump was clipped to her waistband. Her foot, now healed, rested on a cushion. Arthur sat down beside her and took her hand. She stirred slightly but did not wake. Outside, the December night was cool and still. Somewhere across town, his son was probably sitting in his apartment, staring at his phone, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Somewhere in a federal holding facility, Vanessa was beginning to understand the cost of cruelty. And somewhere in a distant cell, Derek was doing the same. But here, in this small living room, Arthur's wife was breathing steadily. Her hand warm in his. He closed his eyes. Justice had been served. The law had spoken. But none of that mattered as much as this. Martha was alive. Michael was home. And for the first time in years, Arthur believed they might actually be okay. He squeezed her hand gently. And he let himself rest. June 25th. 13 months after that Mother's Day dinner. 6 months after Vanessa's sentencing. Arthur sat in the doctor's exam room with Martha beside him. The waiting room had been full of families. Children playing with toys. A young mother cradling a newborn. The world kept turning. Life kept happening. And somehow, against all odds, they were still here. The doctor walked in with 2 thick folders under her arm. She smiled. The kind of smile doctors give when the news is better than expected. Arthur, she said, setting the folders on the counter. Your PSA is 0.8. Arthur blinked. 0.8. Down from 47 in March of last year. 35 radiation treatments completed in September. No detectable masses on your latest scan. I am calling it complete remission. Martha squeezed Arthur's hand so hard he felt her wedding ring press into his skin. He did not say anything. He could not. He had spent a year preparing himself for the opposite news. For the conversation about palliative care. About months instead of years. He had made peace with it. But here he was. Still breathing. Still fighting. Well, he finally managed. Thank you. The doctor turned to Martha. And you, Mrs. Bennett. Your A1C is 7.2%. Martha's eyes widened. 7. Down from 10.2 last March. Your glucose levels have been stable for 3 months straight. The insulin pump is working beautifully. And the continuous monitor Michael set up has been logging every reading. You are doing everything right. Martha looked down at her hands. Michael did that, she said quietly. He checks it every morning. Every night. He sets alarms on his phone so he does not forget. The doctor nodded. I know. He calls me twice a week with questions. Then she knelt beside Martha's chair and gently lifted her right foot. The one that had bled through her stocking on Mother's Day. She peeled back the bandage. Underneath, the skin was smooth. Pink. New. This, the doctor said softly, is what I call a miracle. Martha stared at her foot as if seeing it for the first time. The ulcer. The one that had wept for months. The one that had turned black at the edges. The one Arthur had been so sure would take her leg. Was gone. Completely healed. Your son cleaned this wound every single day, the doctor continued. He followed the protocol exactly. He changed dressings. He monitored for infection. He drove you to every follow-up appointment. Mrs. Bennett, wounds like this do not heal without that kind of care. Michael saved your foot. Martha's tears came silently. The way they always did. Arthur wrapped his arm around her shoulders. The doctor stood and made a note in her chart. Your peripheral neuropathy has improved by about 60%. The nerve damage from years of high glucose is reversing. Slowly. But it is happening. Keep doing what you are doing. We will, Arthur said. After the appointment, they drove home through midday Phoenix traffic. The June heat shimmered off the asphalt. Martha rested her head against the window. Her foot, her whole healed foot, propped on the seat. She did not say much. Neither did Arthur. Some things were too big for words. When they pulled into the driveway, Rachel's car was already there. She had started coming by 3 times a week. Sometimes to check Martha's vitals. Sometimes just to sit and talk. She had brought flowers today. Daisies. Martha's favorite. Inside, Rachel was setting the table for lunch. She looked up when they walked in and grinned. How did it go? Remission, Arthur said. Rachel's grin widened. I knew it. And Martha's A1C? 7.2. Rachel crossed the room and hugged Martha so tightly Arthur thought she might lift her off the ground. I am so proud of you, she whispered. Martha laughed. A real laugh. The kind Arthur had not heard in years. I did not do anything. Michael did it all. You let him, Rachel said. That is something. That evening, Arthur's phone rang. Michael's name lit up the screen. Hey, Dad. Michael. He paused. Arthur could hear him breathing on the other end. I wanted to ask you something. Go ahead. Mother's Day is next Sunday. I know last year was, he trailed off. Arthur waited. I want to cook dinner for you and Mom. At my place. Nothing fancy. Just the three of us. And Rachel, if she wants to come. His voice cracked. I want to do it right this time. Arthur looked across the room at Martha. She was watching him with those steady, knowing eyes. We will be there, Arthur said. Michael exhaled. A sound like relief. Like release. Thank you, Dad. Michael? Yeah. We are proud of you. There was a long silence. Then quietly, I am trying. I know you are. After Arthur hung up, he sat down beside Martha on the couch. She rested her head on his shoulder. He is really coming back, is not he? She whispered. Arthur thought about the last 13 months. The hospital bills paid in full. The insulin pump. The 35 radiation appointments Michael had driven him to, even when Arthur told him he could take a cab. The dressings he had changed. The phone calls to the doctor. The quiet, relentless work of rebuilding a life. He kissed the top of Martha's head. Yeah, he said. Our son has truly come home. May 11th. Sunday morning. 1 year and 1 day after the dinner that changed everything. Arthur woke to silence. Not the heavy, anxious silence of the year before. But the kind that settles over a house when the storm has finally passed. Martha was still asleep beside him. Her breathing steady. Her hand resting on the pillow between them. Sunlight filtered through the curtains. The world outside was calm. For the first time in 3 years, Arthur felt at peace. They arrived at Michael's apartment a little after noon. It was a small one-bedroom unit near the university. A parking lot full of older sedans. A stairwell that smelled faintly of laundry detergent. Rachel pulled up at the same time they did. Carrying a bouquet of daisies and a loaf of homemade bread wrapped in foil. You ready? She asked, smiling at them. Martha squeezed Arthur's hand. I think so. Michael opened the door before they could knock. He was wearing jeans and a plain blue shirt. No designer labels. No tailored fit. His hair was a little longer than it used to be. He looked tired. But his eyes were clear. Hey, Mom. Dad. He stepped aside. Come in. The apartment was modest. A couch from a thrift store. A small dining table with 4 mismatched chairs. Bookshelves made from cinder blocks and planks. The kitchen was tiny. Barely big enough for one person. But Michael had somehow managed to cook an entire meal in it. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic filled the space. On the table sat 4 plates. White. The kind that cost $1 each. And a small vase holding grocery store carnations. No crystal. No linen napkins. No $142 bottles of wine. It was perfect. Rachel set the daisies beside the carnations and hugged Michael tightly. It smells amazing in here. Michael smiled. A real smile. The kind Arthur had not seen on his face in years. I have been cooking since 6 this morning. I am pretty sure I burned the potatoes twice. Martha laughed. I am sure they are wonderful. They sat down together. Michael brought out the food. Roasted chicken with rosemary. Mashed potatoes, only slightly scorched at the edges. Steamed green beans. A salad. It was not the fancy restaurant. It was not expensive. But every bite had been made with care. For the first hour, they just talked about small things. Rachel's patients at the hospital. Martha's new knitting project. The book Arthur had been reading. Michael told them about his job. About the team he was managing. About a difficult project that had finally come together. He spoke with a kind of quiet pride Arthur had not heard from him before. The pride that comes from doing something hard and doing it well. Rachel teased him about his cooking. Martha told embarrassing stories from Michael's childhood. And Arthur just listened. He listened to his family, whole again, sitting around a cheap table in a small apartment. And he realized this was what he had been fighting for all along. At 2 o'clock, after they had finished eating and cleared the plates, Michael stood and walked to the kitchen counter. He picked up a thick envelope and brought it back to the table. His hands were shaking slightly as he set it down in front of Arthur. "Dad," he said quietly. "I need you to open this." Arthur looked at Martha. She nodded. He picked up the envelope and pulled out the contents. Inside were receipts. Dozens of them. Each one stamped "Paid in full." Phoenix Multispecialty Hospital. $12,847. Paid. Valley Cancer Center. $78,500. Paid. Diabetes Supply Company. $18,000. Paid. Community Health Pharmacy. $27,000. Paid. Arthur kept flipping through them. Page after page. Bill after bill. Every single one marked the same way. At the bottom of the stack was a handwritten summary in Michael's blocky script. Total debts paid. $253,800. GoFundMe total raised. $427,000. Remaining funds. $173,200. Invested for Mom and Dad's future care. Arthur stared at the numbers until they blurred. Martha leaned over his shoulder, reading with him. Her hand came up to cover her mouth. "Michael," she whispered. "It is done, Mom," Michael said. His voice cracked. "All of it. Everything. You do not owe anyone anything anymore." Arthur set the papers down carefully, as if they might disintegrate if he moved too fast. Then he reached into the envelope one more time and pulled out the last item. A folded letter. Written on lined notebook paper. "Dear Mom and Dad," it began. Arthur read it silently at first. Then, because Martha was crying too hard to focus, he read it aloud. "Dear Mom and Dad. I do not know if I will ever be able to say the right words. I have tried writing this letter 100 times. And every version feels like it is not enough. But I am going to try anyway. A year ago, I was the worst version of myself. I was selfish. I was blind. I was cruel. I stood in a restaurant and let my wife humiliate you. And I did nothing. I watched you suffer. And I turned away. I took the money you gave me. Money that came from Grandma and Grandpa. Money that was supposed to build a future. And I let it slip through my fingers. I let someone steal it. I let someone spend it. And I never once asked you if you were okay. I am so sorry. I am sorry I did not see Mom's illness. I am sorry I did not see Dad's treatment bills. I am sorry I did not see that you were giving up everything. Your health. Your home. Your dignity. Just to survive. I am sorry I believed that money was the same thing as love. I am sorry I forgot what you taught me. Dad, you told me once that the measure of a man is not what he earns. It is what he gives. You gave me everything. You gave me life. You gave me a home. You gave me a future. And when I lost it all, you still gave me a second chance. I know I cannot undo the past year. I cannot take back the things Vanessa said. I cannot erase the hurt. But I can promise you this. I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you raised me to be. I will take care of you the way you took care of me. I will show up. I will ask questions. I will listen. And I will never, ever forget what you sacrificed for me. I love you both more than I know how to say. Michael. By the time Arthur finished reading, his voice was shaking. Martha was sobbing. Rachel had tears streaming down her face. Michael sat across from them. His head bowed. his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Arthur folded the letter carefully and set it on top of the receipts. Then he stood, walked around the table, and pulled his son into his arms. "You are a good man, Michael," he said quietly. "You are a good man." Michael held on to him like he was drowning. "I am trying, Dad. I am trying so hard. I know you are. And I am proud of you." Martha joined them, wrapping her arms around both of them. Rachel stood too, hesitating for only a second before stepping into the circle. The four of them stood there in that tiny apartment, holding each other, letting the weight of the last year finally lift. At 5 o'clock, they moved to the small patio outside Michael's apartment. It overlooked a dusty parking lot and a chain-link fence. But beyond that, the sky was turning gold and pink as the sun began to set. Michael had brought out folding chairs. They sat together watching the light change, saying nothing. Martha rested her head on Arthur's shoulder. Rachel sat beside Michael, her hand on his arm. The air was warm. The world was quiet. Arthur thought about the inheritance he had given Michael all those years ago. $2 million. A fortune. Gone now. Most of it spent. Stolen. Wasted. For so long, he had believed that money was the legacy he was supposed to leave behind. The thing that would prove he had done something with his life. But he had been wrong. The real inheritance was not money. It was this. Sitting on a patio with the people you love. Watching the sun go down. Knowing that you had survived the worst and come out whole. It was forgiveness. It was second chances. It was learning that the value of a man is not what he owns. It is who he becomes when he loses everything. Michael had lost everything. And he had become the man Arthur always hoped he would be. Martha stirred beside him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. Arthur looked at her. At the woman who had stood beside him for 48 years. Through pneumonia and warehouse fires and hospital bills and betrayal. At Rachel, who had found them when they needed her most. At Michael, who had fallen and gotten back up. "I am thinking," he said, "that we made it." Martha smiled. "Yeah. We did." The sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and crimson. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang. The day was ending. But they were still here. And that was the legacy Arthur would leave behind. Not money. Not houses. Not cars. Just love. Just family. Just this. He squeezed Martha's hand. "We made it," he whispered again. And he knew, deep in his bones, that it was true. Looking back now, sitting in the quiet of my own living room with a cup of tea growing cold beside me, I realized that this story was never really about money or illness or even betrayal. It was about what happens when we forget to ask the people we love a simple question. "Are you okay?" My name is Eleanor Brooks. I am 67 years old. Retired. Widowed. Living in a quiet little town outside Indianapolis. And if there is one thing I have learned from watching Arthur and Martha Bennett, it is this. Family betrayal is a quiet killer. It does not announce itself with grand gestures. It starts small. A missed phone call. An unanswered text. A dinner invitation declined one too many times. It grows in the space between, "I am fine," and the truth. But here is the thing. Betrayal is not the end. Redemption is possible. Forgiveness is possible. But only if both sides are willing to do the hardest work of all. Showing up every single day and choosing love over pride. Michael could have walked away after that night. He could have blamed his father for embarrassing him. For ruining his marriage. For exposing his failures in front of 40 million strangers. But he did not. He chose to come back. He chose to sit in the wreckage of his own mistakes and rebuild, brick by brick, the relationship he had destroyed. And Arthur, stubborn old man that he was, chose to let him. That is the lesson, I think. If someone you love has committed family betrayal against you, give them a chance to make it right. Not because they deserve it. Not because it is easy. But because love, real love, is not about keeping score. It is about deciding that the person in front of you is worth more than the hurt they caused. Arthur and Martha made it. Their son came home. A sister found her brother. A family healed. Not because the past was erased. But because they chose each other. Every single day. Even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. And that, my friends, is a legacy worth leaving.